Now let's talk about resume analysis. Okay, we know there are two different methods we can use for finding and hiring people. One, we can find people's resumes and contact them directly, or two, we can place a job listing and have people come to us. When it comes to the first method, we need to know some things about how to analyze resumes. Here's what you need to know. 99% of all resumes are complete hype. Now you probably know this if you've ever created a resume for yourself or know anything about resumes themselves. They're pretty much made to make us look way better than we are. That's just how they work. Well, when you see these online resumes, you got to be very, very careful when you look at what someone says about themselves and what their skills are, so on and so forth. And of course, that's why we have an evaluation process in this course for hiring people, and that's what you're going through in this module. So we're going to get to all the different steps and all the ways to pre-qualify people, evaluate their skills, their personality, and other things that will hopefully give us an indicator that they will potentially be a really good worker rather than someone that's not going to do very good work. So the first thing to know is 99% of everything you see on those resumes are hype. You can't believe everything that you read. And just because they list a certain skill, that doesn't mean that they're good at it. That's something really important to realize. You know, I've had some horror stories of hiring programmers, and for a great example, somebody listed that they knew Flash or that they could program in Flash. So I found them, hired them right away to do a bunch of projects that we needed with Flash programming, and it turned out they really didn't know Flash at all. People will use something in a project or at a previous job where, let's say, they'll do a little bit of Flash editing where someone said, hey, our previous programmer was our Flash developer, but he left and went on to something else, and we don't know how to edit this code. Can you do a little research on how Flash works and go in and see if you can change how the name is printed on this page or what the copyright date is? So they'll do a little bit of research, they'll get into Flash, they'll go in there, they'll change that, and guess what? Now they've had experience with Flash. Doesn't mean they're a good and capable Flash programmer and developer. Doesn't mean by any means that they're a Flash expert. All it means is that they've used Flash. Well, that doesn't mean anything at all, because if you're looking to hire someone to do Flash development and programming, whether it's a game or some business application, they're not going to do you any good. Yet they certainly have Flash down as one of the skills in the resume. This is how kind of resume puffery, so to speak, works. People list every possible skill they've ever had exposure to, whether they're good at it or not. So you have to be very, very careful. Here's a valuable tip. When you're looking at people's resumes, look for people that have worked at the same job for a long time. Usually they'll list where their past work experience has come from. They'll list a date range of when they've worked for those different companies, and so on and so forth. Ideally, you want to find people that have worked long stretches of time for companies. You don't want to see someone that's worked at one company for a month, then another company for 2 months, and then another company for 3 months, and then another company for a month. That's a bad sign. Frequency of job change is a bad sign in most cases. Not all, but in most cases. So look for people that have worked at the same job for a long time. This is important for you to know about this whole game of hiring people to work for you. The best outsourced workers are almost in all cases already employed. This is one of the reasons why the resume method of contacting people directly can often be better than placing a job listing. There are pros and cons to both. Now, it certainly doesn't mean that the most talented people are ever between jobs and looking for something else, because sometimes they are, but usually the better workers are already in a job. Now, if they're in a job, why have they placed their resume on another site? Well, they're constantly looking to hopefully make more money, and whatever the salary requirements are in their resume posting or that job posting is typically a far greater amount than what they're currently making today. So they're just keeping their options open. But you have to know that the best workers are already employed. Now, I bring this up specifically so you realize going into this that in order to hire those best workers, you're basically going to have to make them an offer and some kind of a job offer and opportunity that they seem is better than their current working position for them to leave and work for you. Now, it's not that hard to get people to leave and work for you. Again, they've already posted the resume. That's step one, saying they're open to leaving and going on to something else. But there are some things you're going to have to do, and you're going to learn that in this module, to persuade people why they should come and work for you. It's very important that you look at their portfolio examples, of course. What have they done? What's their past work? If they're a graphic designer, what designs have they done? Ask to see websites they've designed or logos or anything else that they've worked on. If you're hiring a writer, let's see some articles. Let's see some blog posts. Let's see some ebooks you've ghostwritten. If you ask them to do anything or they're going to be expected to do anything, ideally you need to see previous work. You don't just want a guinea pig that's never done anything and they're just going to be getting all on the job training. Part of being successful with outsourced workers and making more money in your business is going to come down to some training, and of course we're going to cover that in module 3. But you really want someone that's already experienced in doing a lot of things, so they don't just come in and can't contribute and produce value for you and your business, right away. You want them to be able to produce something. So you got to look at their portfolio and look at their examples and see what they've done, and really carefully look at what they've worked on before. That's a very critical thing in looking at someone's resume and realizing, what they've done. And most resumes nowadays link to portfolios. So you want to look for resumes that link to portfolios, because in many cases, not always, but in many cases, if they don't link to their portfolio of work, they're probably not proud of it. So look for the portfolio links. Now, it's a bonus if you find someone that specifically mentions they've worked within a team environment. This is important. Ideally, you'll want someone that's used to working with other people and other teams if possible. Some of these freelance jobs, like graphic designer and some of these other things, researcher, writer, backlink builder, some of those jobs are more suited for people that are just going to work alone, and that's fine. They can still do a really good job. But ideally, anytime you can see them talking about working within a team environment, where they had deadlines and worked on multiple projects together, that's usually a good sign that they're a team player, as well as they work well with other people. So these are some things to keep in mind when you look at resumes. You got to be very careful when you analyze resumes, or you can waste your time. The beauty is, if you accidentally make a mistake and you contact somebody who had a bogus resume or one that they kind of hyped up, the rest of our evaluation process will filter them down to figuring out if they're going to be a good worker or not. But everything starts with analyzing resumes.